everybody. This is the Effective Advocacy panel, and we're so happy to see so many people here. This is the very last workshop of the conference, and quite frankly, we had about half this number yesterday, but I know there were some really hard decisions to make about which one to go to and workshop. So one reason I'm so happy to see you is I look at you all as potential lawyers, okay, and lobbyists, the L word. So please consider that, which is to join us next year, early next year, when we are lobbying in support of the tiered registry as we would like it. So I will go into more details about that, but if you could think from that context, we'd really appreciate it. So let's go back to the very beginning. And the question is, what is advocacy? And some people have heard the word lobby before. You lobby, lobbyists. Sometimes people think that's a bad word. But let me tell you, lobbyists do a lot of good as well. Maybe there's some lobbyists out there who do things that others don't like. But the fact is, we're there to persuade. Okay? We're there to persuade and possibly to educate. Okay? The bright line between lobbying and education, quite frankly, is if there's pending legislation. So sometimes you can go to your state capital or the federal government or wherever you want to persuade, and you can actually be educating. And so, for example, on our issue, you might say, I'm here to educate you about who is on the registry and who's not on the registry. Okay? Or in California, how many people are in the registry, what types of offenses, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that would be education. When there's a bill that's pending and you're saying, we're here to speak in support of this bill, or we're here to speak in opposition to a bill, that's lobbying. Okay, and again, it's may make no difference in your mind, but to the IRS, that gives us our nonprofit status, it makes a difference, okay? And also when people donate money, sometimes people want to, in fact, earmark it so that it can be used for lobbying or not to be used for lobbying. Okay, the next question is, who does it? Who does advocacy, who does lobbying? And there's the professionals, and then there's grassroots organizations, okay? We fall in the category of grassroots organizations. So you might think, well, who are the paid lobbyists, the professional lobbyists? They're usually people there representing an industry, like it might be alcohol, right? It might be the firearms people. You just don't know, but or the restaurateurs or the car dealers or whoever it is. A lot of those people have professional lobbyists. By the way, law enforcement in California have a lot of lobbyists as well. So the police chiefs have lobbyists, the sheriff's department has lobbyists, the DAs, attorneys have lobbyists, etc. And they're all professional lobbyists, and that's who we're up against. Okay? And so to win as the grassroots organization, you have to be organized and you have to have a single message to go in with. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Okay, then the question is, why do we advocate? Well, we either want to get something passed or we want to stop something. And our organization, we worked for 6.5 years to get one thing passed. That was all. We only went forward with one idea of what we needed, and that was a tiered registry. And I'm happy to report that we got it after 6.5 years. Only 6.5 years. What we do on a much more regular basis is we stop legislation. Okay? And the good news is it's easier to stop legislation than it is to pass legislation. And that's because there's many opportunities. So for every piece of legislation that goes forward, it goes to multiple committees. And then it has to go to the floor of one house or the other. And if it gets passed by the first house, then it goes through the other house and starts all over again. And many bills have multiple committee referrals. So for example, on our tiered registry bill, there were 2 committees that it went to. It went to public safety, and it also went to appropriations. And I'll tell you about the roller coaster ride we went on in just a while. But there's some bills that have even more committee referrals than that. And there's something called the Rules Committee, and it's a Rules Committee that's kind of like the air traffic controller, and says, Bill, you're going to go this place, you're going to go that place, and you're going to go that place. Sometimes when a bill gets a lot of referrals, you know the leadership doesn't like it, because that means it has that many opportunities to be stopped. And quite frankly, you only have to stop it at one committee, okay? And so I feel many times like we are bug zappers. And so these bills that we don't like are the bugs, and we're going into them. And I will tell you that this year, we've only had 3 bugs to zap. One was Senate Bill 1143, and it had to do with residency restrictions. So it was basically going to require anybody who was required to register to tell their potential landlord. So you go file an application for an apartment, you have to tell your potential landlord that you're on the sex offender registry, right? Or if you're even going to buy a house, you're going to have to tell the seller of that house that you're on the sex offender registry, right? And if you didn't do that, or you just couldn't prove it, the fact is they could break the lease, or they could reverse the sale of the house. I mean, that's big stuff, right? So we had to zap that bug, and I'm happy to report that we did that. So it was a Senate bill. It started in the Senate and went to public safety because our issues are considered public safety issues in general. And we were able to convince the Senate Public Safety Committee that this was unconstitutional, and they zapped that bug for us. And by the way, if you've ever gone to one of these committee hearings, you're going to sometimes be confused even when they take a vote, because you'll see that, and this bill was one of those, that it only got 2 no votes. Out of 7. It only got 2 no votes, but it didn't get 5 yes votes. It only got 2 yes votes. It got like 2 no votes and 2 yes votes, and then there were 3 people who said they weren't going to vote. But if somebody abstains, it's not a yes vote. They have to have 4 yes votes to get the bill passed. So we were watching this very curiously, and people started abstaining. It was like, isn't this curious? But the fact is that they only got 2 yes votes, and that bill got stopped. Okay. Yay! Yeah. And I'm going to have to stand up. Does this get messed up the camera, Mark? I'm standing up. So then we have the Senate Bill 976. I can project my voice better if I'm standing. And that was the definition of what's a violent offense. We're fighting that because of Proposition 57. So anybody here know about Prop 57? Are you affected by it? Maybe you have a loved one who's incarcerated? Maybe not. Okay, so Prop 57, another ballot initiative, doesn't make a lot of sense, but they passed it. But I shouldn't say, Proposition 57 we do favor. And Proposition 57 says anybody who is convicted of a non-violent offense would be eligible for early parole consideration. That's basically all that ballot proposition said. And so the ballot proposition got passed by the public, I believe by 2/3 majority. And so then it went to CDCR that had to issue regulations. And when they issued the regulations, they created an exception. And they said, except for anybody convicted of a sex offense. Oh, right? And it's like, folks, you can't do that. I took administrative law more than 30 years ago, but I remember your regulations cannot be any broader than the law that does it. Or it has to fit like in the same box, right? So we filed, we didn't have to file a lawsuit about that, but we were able to, we did file a lawsuit about Proposition 57 and those regulations, but this basically was going to try to overturn our court victory. So we got the court victory and said, no, CDCR, you cannot pass regulations that say, except for people on the sex offender registry. And then so what they're trying to do here is to pass a law that changes the definition of what a violent felony is. Isn't that clever? And then the next one, my next example, and this is the 3rd bill we zapped this year, is Assembly Bill 2839, and that had to do with the patients at Coalinga State Hospital. These are the men there for civil commitment, right? We have about 1,300 people there for civil commitment. And this is a crazy thing. The city of Coalinga annexed the state hospital that has 1,300 patients in it. These patients, some of them have been voting for 10 years since the annexation. But what happened is this last November, the patients at Coalinga defeated a sales tax increase, so retail sales, right? They pay this sales tax when they buy things at their convenience store, right? And things like that. So they had a direct interest in this. Actually, they tried to engage with the city, the patients did, and the city wouldn't pay attention to them. We don't need to pay attention to you. You guys are crazy. You guys don't count. We're not going to pay attention to you. And the patients actually defeated the bill. And so we filed, actually, Then the city of Coalinga filed a lawsuit against Fresno County, saying Fresno County should not have allowed the patients to vote in that election. They've been doing it for 10 years, and in Coalinga, the city never complained until that time, because that was the first time the patients were responsible for overturning something. So, guess what? The assemblyman who represents Coalinga State Hospital in the city of Coalinga files a bill and says, oh, we're going to now pass a bill that says that the patients at Coalinga are going to have to vote where they used to live, not where they live now. And if you know about people in civil commitment, one, they rarely get released, right? So that would mean for the rest of their lives, they'd be voting somewhere where they don't live. And many of them have been incarcerated or in a hospital for 30 years or more. And they have absolutely no ties to those past communities. So, so we zapped that bug too.
Yeah.
It does feel good. I have to. Okay. So where do we advocate, folks? We advocate at every level of government. I'm talking about local city council meetings, right? And for a while there, we were spending a lot of time in Orange County, because the cities in Orange County were passing presence restrictions and basically telling people on the registry, you can't go to our parks, you can't go to the public swimming pool, you can't go to the beach, you can't go on the hiking trails, etc., etc. Some of them were really, really creative. And by the way, they were all very different from one another. And we had the DA of Orange County lobbying the cities to pass presence restrictions. And he told them in writing that what they were doing was constitutional. And I'm like, whoa, when was the last time he read the Constitution? Because it is not constitutional to do this, right? And the great irony of it was this county, he first convinced the county of Orange to pass these presence restrictions. And that was the first law that was challenged and the first one that went down. But we eventually got rid of all 16 of them. Okay, so city councils. County governments too. I don't spend as much time in county governments. They seem to be a little smarter. Their attorneys are definitely smarter than city attorneys in general. Sorry, city attorneys. Federal government too. Federal government advocacy is necessary. And one of the things we're going to announce later, but I can tell you first, it's a secret, okay? That next year in September, on September 10th and 11th of 2019, we're going to Washington, D.C. This will be our first foray into federal. Well, now we're just going to, that's the legislative branch. We're going to focus on the that's the judiciary. We're focusing on the legislative branch in September of next year. Okay. Unless somebody lets me argue a case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Soon.
Yeah. So how long does it take to get a bill passed? Well, I told you about the tiered registry. It was 6.5 years. I personally observed a bill. It took them 10 years. Okay? And then what happens is after the bill gets passed, sometimes people chip away at it. And I have a big, big concern about our tiered registry next year, and that might happen. It doesn't go into effect until the year 2021, right? And what might happen next year is they're going to be people, I think, are going to try to lift things up from tier 1 and tier 2 into tier 3, tier 3 being lifetime registration, okay? We're going to try to push things from tier 3 down to tiers 2 and 1, and especially all the offenses involving child pornography. Okay, and by the way, when it comes to child pornography, the federal government recommends tier 1 and tier 2 for the CP offenses. Okay, so why is our state government putting them up on tier 3? I will tell you that in a moment. Okay, so how long does it take? I say it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I am a runner and I think that way. But just think about it too. And people go, oh, I'm going to go to one hearing and that's going to take care of everything. No. Even after, if you're lucky enough to get your bill introduced, and like with tiered registry, we got a bill introduced and somebody else got it zapped, okay? So it does take a long time. So let me tell you a little bit about the process for the tiered registry, because then you'll understand the uncertainties of legislation. And please understand, legislation is not a scalpel, it's more like a bazooka. Okay, and the other thing, or people say making sausage, right? So you put all this input in, and you're not quite sure what's going to come out the other side. Okay, so you think you're planting roses, and you have a bunch of dandelions and weeds at the end, right? You just don't know, and that's because it's a multi-step process, and it can be modified any step of the way. So I talked about tiered registry. We had good old Assemblyman Tom Amiano, the chairman of the Public Safety Committee in the Assembly. And that's where our bills go, is to public safety committees, and who wouldn't want the chairman to back your bill, to be the author of the bill? Well, anybody who knew that Tom Amiano wasn't considered a mainstream politician. He's a gay man. That doesn't make him not, in California that makes you mainstream actually, but the fact is that he was seen as kind of on the fringe of the gay community in some respects. And so I remember the very first time I looked up Tom Amiano, this is what I found. He, at a governor's event, he publicly said the governor, "Kiss my faggot ass." So, he wasn't considered a mainstream legislator. But he was our hero, and he was carrying our bill, and we wished him well, and we lobbied like crazy in support of that bill. And he did it twice, and twice it sunk, right? So that was that. But even crazier was what happened last year. And by the way, we can only get our bills passed in odd numbered years. And why is that? It's odd, right? But it's because that's when we don't have elections. And our elected officials have half a spine when it's not an election year, and they have no spine when it is an election year. So that's her only chance, when it's an odd numbered year. So this year we're not trying anything except 3 bills, right? And we're not trying to get any progress made, but we will next year. We're going to try to get the tiered registry bill fixed to our liking. But before I go there, I want to tell you what happened. So in early 2017, Senator Ricardo Lara came out as the author of our bill. We were so excited. He's a chairman of a powerful committee. It's like, this is great. Not only is he a gay man, which is good these days in Sacramento, but the fact is he was a self-identified survivor of sexual abuse. Ricardo Lara. Here is a survivor who is saying that this is a good thing, having a tiered registry. So we were so excited. It took about 60 to 90 days, and he said, "I changed my mind." And the reason he changed his mind, given reason, was he decided to run for state office. And I guess he just didn't want that on his record. Okay? So, and he's running for insurance commissioner, and he really is. So there we were. It's kind of like you're in a boat and you're adrift because there's nobody running the boat, directing the boat anymore. So, but what did happen was Senator Scott Wiener from San Francisco stepped forward. He's a brand new senator, okay? He's never had statewide office before, or I'm sorry, a state level office before. He'd been on their board of supervisors in San Francisco, and he was well known and held in high regard in San Francisco, but the rest of the people didn't know him. But the fact is, he did have some people helping him. And I won't even identify on the camera who they were, but they were people who used to be in the state Senate and in the state assembly. And so he said, okay, I'm on board. Let's go for it. Let's get this tiered registry passed. And really, it was an amazing amount of work done by him, by our Sex Offender Management Board, ACLU, the California Attorneys for Criminal Justice, the people that are usually our allies. But in addition to that, we had a victims' rights group come on board. We had the DA's Association come on board, the Police Chiefs Association. We were like in shock. It's like we rarely talk to each other. So here we were, this big coalition was put together, and we made it all the way through the Senate. It was a Senate bill, so it went to the Senate first, and we're like, oh my gosh, we'd never gotten it passed on the floor before, so this is like hallelujah moment. Wow. So it gets to the Senate, and it goes over to the Assembly. And bills always start in the Assembly before, and we knew the Assembly was going to be more difficult than the Senate, but you don't know how much more difficult. So it goes to the Public Safety Committee, and it passes, because people in the Public Safety Committee are used to dealing with our issues. And the staff is used to dealing with our issue, and it's not, oh my gosh, you have cooties, don't talk to me, right? So we get it through the Public Safety Committee, and it has one hurdle before it goes to the floor, and that's the Appropriations Committee. And last September 1 of 2017, I remember it well because I was there, the Assembly's Appropriations Committee killed the bill. Our Appropriations Committees, this is Janice's personal opinion, are too powerful. And the chairs of those committees are way too powerful because they can single-handedly stop the bill, and that's exactly what happened. Okay, so her name is Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher, and for anybody in this room or watching this video, if you have an opportunity to vote against Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher, we hope you'll do it. Okay, and that is because she is not a friend of our community. Okay, and she's a Democrat. Okay. By the way, it doesn't make a difference if they're Democrats or Republicans. It really doesn't. The fact is, some of them get it, most of them don't. Okay, regardless of the political party. So she single-handedly stopped the bill. It has been reported from multiple sources, reliable sources, that she got a call from the governor. And the governor said, "Wrong answer, Lorena. You will revive that bill." And they went through a lot of legislative shenanigans. Things that don't normally happen with legislation happen with that bill. So it got killed on a Friday, September 1st, Labor Day weekend. By Tuesday, it was revived. And it was on the fast track. So that was whatever day that was. But the fact is, by September 15th, we had a new bill, and it got passed on the assembly floor. So it's like, wow. And then the next day, the Senate passed it. And about 2 weeks later, right before, I think it's Columbus Day weekend, it was another holiday weekend on the Friday before, the governor signed the bill into law. Okay? Wow. And that was on purpose. Because it's like, oh, the journalists have gone home for this all 3-day weekend, all the government people have gone home, nobody's paying attention to what's going on. I saw a couple little articles, and so nobody was screaming about it, thank God, right? And so we got our bill turned into law. However, yes, sir.
I just have a question for you. Is that the same day that they, so can you, I happen to know, but can you explain how they did that with Gut Demand and how they got it out one bill and
okay, I'll try to do a brief version of it. So when he was just asking about the gut and amend process, it kind of sounds like a fish to me. You gut your fish, and then, I don't know, you're going to put some turkey in there. That's the amendment, or stuffing. But the fact is, you can do that in California. If an author of a bill is willing to scoop out the innards, gut it, then they can stuff something new in there. And that's what Senator Scott Wiener did for us. So when the bill got killed on September 1, all that language basically was flushed down the toilet, and he had to come up with new language to put in this bill. And because of that, we lost some benefits. And the biggest benefit we lost was anybody convicted of a felony CP offense. Felony, not misdemeanor, okay, felony CP offense is now in Tier 3. Okay, and that was a huge concession to law enforcement. And I won't mention the specific law enforcement organization, but the fact is that's what happened. That people in law enforcement demanded their pound of flesh. Supposedly they were on our side and on our team, but they said all CP offenses have to be in Tier 3. That makes no sense. This is a non-contact, non-violent offense, right, to possess a photograph, or maybe it's a video. And we got teens, by the way, they're taking nude selfies and sending them to other teens, and all those people are producing, distributing, and possessing child pornography. So it doesn't, a lot of people don't understand that. The age of the person possessing it makes no difference. And it's really a strict liability offense. If it is on your computer, they don't have to prove you looked at it. Yes?
Who takes the picture makes no difference. They take the picture of themselves, they're producing child pornography.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of teenagers have cell phones, and they're taking selfies, and some of them are nude selfies, and then they're sending it to other people in their schools. And it's not just high school students, it's even less, lower ages than that. So please, if you have teenagers at home, please talk to them about this, because we don't want them to be added to the register. Okay, so back to effective advocacy. Let's talk about it. So I bring that up because that is the biggest change that we're going to try to affect in 2019. And it's going to be a Herculean effort. And I'll tell you, let me just quote a lobbyist who works for law enforcement. If you try to take the CP offenses off of Tier 3, we will crush you. That is a direct quote. This man weighs over 300 pounds, he's about 6'5". And when he said that, I was afraid he was gonna jump across the desk and sit on me. And literally pushed me right down it. I said, oh no, I'm not saying we're gonna do that, just exploring that possibility. But actually we're gonna do it. So, and we need your help. We really and truly need your help. I'm also concerned that some of the other benefits that exist in the tiered registry today are going to be taken away. Julio?
In your opinion, why is the law enforcement so keen in that, to have that in Tier 3?
Well, I've heard some theories. One of them right now is that CP and child sex trafficking have been somehow linked. And the scary reports that come out, and we know.
Wow, those reports jumped right out, didn't they?
And we know that these reports are a bunch of nonsense, to put it mildly. And I guess it's too early to start swearing. Anyway, but the fact, I'll just say it's a bunch of nonsense, okay? So it's being conflated. And it used to be, the conflation was, if you view child pornography, the next thing you're going to do is molest a child, okay? Now they're taking it a step further. So first you're going to look at child pornography, then you're going to molest a child, and then you're going to take this child to another country and turn him into a sex slave. But there are people out there who believe this nonsense. What? And really, folks, you know, what Lori Jo told us yesterday, we really have to think long and hard about is, how do we frame our message, right? And that whole idea about the reptilian brain, it exists. And until Lori Jo spoke yesterday, I really didn't have an effective way to get past the reptilian brains. But the thing is that, and Catherine Carpenter, lizards too, right, the reptiles, it's true. It's been proven that when we think that we're in danger, our brains shut off. Most of our brain shuts off. And this little bitty part of our brain that's in charge of fight or flight, that saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, right? When was the last time you saw a saber-toothed tiger, right? That was alive. I've seen a few in museum stuff. But the fact is that we can't think. We cannot process information. We can't take in any new information. We cannot analyze the information that's already in our brain. And so what happens instead is we react emotionally. And that's a lot of stuff going on. So I'm a mother of two, and I don't want my child to be sexually assaulted, right? But it's like, but these laws are not preventing that from happening, right? The registry is not preventing that from happening. And so it's like we have to figure out the way to effectively frame our message. And I want you all to know that our board of directors has already agreed to hire Lori Jo, and she's going to come train us on how to frame our message so we can effectively deliver it in the Sacramento State Capitol. And then we're going to turn around and we're going to train you, okay? And so I'm unabashedly inviting you to come join us early next year. It'll be either the last week in January or the first week in February. We will have newly elected members of both houses, and they will not yet be corrupted, okay? And we need to get to them while their brains are still open and tell them, look, folks, these are the facts, and we're going to have this lovely, perfectly framed message to deliver to them, okay? And that's what we need to do. Okay. So, how do we do this? We need to focus our message, and this is one way we do it. You have to say really simple words. We urge you to support Senate Bill blah, blah, blah. We urge you to oppose this other Senate bill, okay? You have to be that direct with them. And it's not because they're stupid. They're actually pretty bright. Their staff is bright, the members are bright, but this is the deal. You get bombarded with information. I'm a former congressional staffer, and I will tell you there were days for 8 to 10 hours a day, I had to listen to somebody new every hour come and talk to me. And I want to tell you, it gets to be a bunch of noise, right? Especially when you have people coming in and saying different things, slightly different things on the same issue. After a while, it becomes noise. So that's why we have to frame our issue. We have to have a message that we deliver to our legislators. And once we do that, and we have done it, we've been fairly effective, but we could be better, okay? And when we're gonna grasp for something that's really, really important and unpopular, we gotta be as sharp as tacks, my mom used to say, okay? We also have to keep our messages short. And I know that there are some wonderful people out there who love to write 20, 25-page reports. This is not the time for a 25-page report, because they will not look at it. So what I'm going to do is actually pass out an example. This is one of those bugs we zapped. Senate Bill 26, okay? Senate Bill 26, it wasn't this year, but in a prior year, would have prohibited everybody on the registry from going to any school campus, K through 12, for any reason. Okay? You have a kid in school, you have a grandkid in school, gonna graduate, they don't care, okay? They didn't care. Senator Connie Leyva didn't care, okay? This was another bill, by the way, that was trying to make up for a lawsuit that they lost. So the city of Fontana, their Fontana Unified School District rather, had passed a policy. By the way, they were threatened by the parents at that school district that if they didn't pass the policy, that no registrants on our campus for any reason, then they were going to basically throw out the bums on their school district board. That's what they threw. I have the video, I watched it many times, right? And they said some really ugly things. Not fact-based, I will admit, right? But they said some really ugly things. So we sued them, Fontana Unified School District. We won, and Senator Leyva introduced this legislation, which would have made it statewide. And this is the kind of nonsense that goes on. So it really is good to speak different languages, lobbying and litigation. Let me tell you, it's really important. We have to zap these bugs that come up, or sometimes I feel like it's a game of whack-a-mole. But notice, this is on one piece of paper, right? This is all they can absorb, one piece of paper. If you're lucky, they will keep your one sheet of paper. If you give them a 25-page report, the moment you leave the office, they will throw it in the trash, okay? So one piece of paper, that's all you get. To get their attention. Now, this is great. If in fact they go, wow, this is fascinating, can you tell me more about one of these points? You go, yes, I happen to have a 20-page report on this, and I will get that to you by email tomorrow, okay? Or I happen to have one here in my briefcase, here you go, okay? That's when you know you got them hooked, is they ask you for more information. And try to give it to them gently, guidedly. Yeah. So anyway, this is an example. When you, also, one of the things we do is we write letters. So I've asked you to come to Sacramento, just in case you can't make it that day. We're gonna ask you to write letters, and this is a sample letter. Okay, this has to do with Senate Bill 1143, which I actually talked to you about. This was dealing with the landlords and the people that might sell you a house, and what we did. And we communicate with you through email, we communicate with you through text messages. This is the man right here, our great emailer and text messenger.
Sign up for alerts. Advertisement.
Yeah, on our front page of our website, there's a box, and it says you can sign up for email alert messages, or you can sign up for text alert, and he's the one that does it. By the way, he usually drafts it, I edit it, and he sends it out, okay? This is a way that we can communicate with you quickly, because sometimes these bugs, are all of a sudden get on the radar, and oh my God, and I got one yesterday, and it was a gut and amend process, by the way. Somebody scooped out the guts of the bill, and all of a sudden, it's a residency restrictions bill. Like, my gosh, how many of these do we have to go through? But it's another one. He thinks he's a little bit different. The committee has already warned him it's probably unconstitutional, but they need letters from our organization, and they need letters from individuals. So again, when there's a bug that needs to be zapped, like Assembly Bill 554, we will notify you of this. We will put on our website, so even if we don't have your email address or your phone number to send you a text message, we will put, either a model letter like the one that's being sent around, or some bullet points. And we ask you to put it in your own language. These letters make a difference, okay? So when a bill is being considered by committee, the staff of the committee have put together an analysis. And in fact, they say, these are the organizations that support, these are the organizations that oppose. These are how many private letters we've gotten in support and how many private letters in opposition. Okay, it really makes a difference. We'll also ask you to make phone calls, okay? And it's not scary. The fact is you will be on the phone for 1 minute or less per office that you call. David.
Absolutely, it's super fast, the phone calls, I mean, they're like the most, really 30 seconds. They just want to know if you're in favor or against. Sometimes they ask your name, sometimes they ask your zip code or the city you live in. And that's it, they don't care about anything else.
Right.
For or against.
Yeah, they don't want you to go into a long explanation of why. Yes, ma'am?
Do letters or calls from out of state make a difference?
Not really, but you might make a phone call and if you have a relative that lives in that state, in our state.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How important is it that you be in the district of the representative that you are calling? They always want to know. Are you in the
Exactly,
district?
and that's a great question. If you're a constituent, that member has to listen to you. You have the greatest influence with that office. But this is the problem. When the bill goes in front of a committee, it has 7 members, okay? And you're represented by one person, and that person may or may not be on the committee. So we ask, please call anyway. We don't say limit it to that. When we have our face-to-face meetings, I will say that we try to include a constituent when we go into that office because we know that we will get more attention if there's a constituent with us. And one of the people who's on our board of directors, I remember one time we went in to visit with his state senator, and I will tell you, they paid attention and they were taking notes, okay? Other times you get a meeting and maybe they're paying attention, maybe they're not, okay? But it has to be done. The democratic process is not quick. and I don't think it's painful, but it's not quick. And I want to tell you that you will feel so good after you do this. And Roger, why don't you explain? Roger has joined us many times in Sacramento. Are you a lobbyist, Roger? Oh, the L word. Okay.
Well, now you guys know the definition, you decide. I was one of the guys in the basement of the Santa Ana jail, quaking, all the felons or soon-to-be felons looking behind the bars, or we know what you're here getting photographed for, stripping down, putting on my green jumpsuit, and I'm thinking, this is hell. And I've been there 2 or 3 hours, and I was like, it's just me against. Anyway, I was desperate, and then I got a letter, and maybe some of you did too, saying, hi, we're here to help you out.
Wow.
And I was like, Janice, what's this, up in Los Angeles? So I went up to one of the meetings. I was just stunned to meet some of you guys. And hey, there's people that actually care and willing to support each other. And it's not just me. I had this image of like hiding in a closet waiting for the guy with the hatchet to come get me. But then suddenly there's 50 guys with me in the closet and the door opens and the guy runs away. And it's like I'm not a quaking, scared victim anymore. I've got a team. And it was really cool. And so, all right, I'm gonna go to Sacramento with him. So I drove up there and went to one of the meetings in the legislature's office. And I just watched for the first time and I saw how the leader was explaining, this is what we're here for, and it was explaining to the assistant to the senator, the staff, the chief staff, and they took notes and they were talking. I thought, wow, we're educating them, and they're getting to know, and we're not monsters, as they were looking at us, right? And I had my business suit on, and I could see, like, wow, they don't match the expectations. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll come to when you actually stand in front of the microphone and say I'm against the bill. So I did, and I was terrified. It was a presence restrictions bill, and so they called up, people were for it, a couple people got up to the mic and said they were for it, then Janice got up, stated why against it, and then they said, who else? And so I stood up with the rest of our team, can't remember exactly how many, got up to the mic.
About 15.
About 15, yeah. And all I said was, hi, my name's Roger, businessman from Modesto, and I oppose this bill, and I sat down. No long speech, they wouldn't even let us do long speeches, not allowed. And I felt so good when I sat down there. And to my disappointment, the bill went through. And then, to my utter amazement, after it passed, the next day the author withdrew the bill. And I gotta believe, he was amazed with the rest of them that there were actually people coming up opposing these bills for the first time. It wasn't just easy unopposed votes. And I was so jazzed. And so I went to the California Sex Offender Management Board, and they wanted to hear from sex offenders on views. So I got up and I did my thing, and there was a woman sitting next to me with her friends, and they had this T-shirt, and they were all angry, and the guy had moved into San Diego with a sexually violent predator, and they were there. He's telling these, and the committee said, "You're in the wrong place. You're supposed to be talking to those people, not us." And they were all like, "Huh." But I talked with the woman next to me afterward. She'd been listening to me telling them that I had done everything I could to not reoffend. And she said, "I've never heard that before." She said, now I know it's possible. You're not all monsters. I'm going to tell my friends." It's like, whoa, just by someone hearing what I said. And then it was at the Senate Public Safety Committee, the chair, Nancy Skinner, said we were courageous for coming in there. Us, me, a registrant. I was like, wow, we're making a difference. We're actually standing up in the darkness with a light, points of light, where there had never been any opposition, any points of light before that. So I'm jazzed now, and I've realized that if I share at appropriate times with my family, okay, this is what happened. I'm on the registry, and that. I build up tremendous trust that way, and they're writing letters for me now, okay?
And making phone calls.
And making phone calls, absolutely. And I'll help them write the letter if they don't know how to do it. And a unique letter, never just copy the letter. Otherwise they count all the copies as one, okay? And then my friends, selectively and carefully at the right time. I told a few friends, and guess what? They're calling and writing letters too. And this is the kind of grassroots movements that will change everything. And that's what gets me excited about this. So I encourage you guys, the more scared you are, the more it's time to get out of that rabbit hole, because hiding in there doesn't work any. They will reach in and grab us out by the ears, and with new presence restrictions, residency restrictions, all that. You can't hide from this. It's not an option. There are certain people groups throughout history that happen to, and we need to stand up, speak up, and show up, and it's made an incredible difference.
Yes, it has. Yes,
I was
sir.
just gonna say, what excites me about this reminds me of going and lobbying for gay marriage when we were doing the gay rights fight. It feels like the same sort of thing, having to convince people that gay people were not somehow diseased, and they weren't somehow, you weren't gonna get cooties if you supported their equal rights. And it seems like the same sort of fight, just on a different front.
It is.
You know,
It's really energizing.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because you all may not have noticed, but we have an undercurrent here at the conference. We've really reached out to the gay community and made sure that we include them. Even last year, we had a panel on LGBTQ issues. So the saddest calls that I get are people from the gay community who are being ostracized by the gay community. And I have a daughter who's a lesbian, right? And when I first told her what I'm doing, the first thing out of her mouth was, "How could you?" That's the first thing that came out of her mouth. And we wrote letters to each other after that, because but we needed to, because there were certain things we needed to share with each other that she wouldn't otherwise understand. And you know how conversation can go sometimes. And I really told her, I said, "Dear, I really appreciate you, and I appreciate what you have to say, but the fact is that I saw a movie before you were ever born. And how many people have seen the movie To Kill a Mockingbird? Yeah? And read the book? Atticus Finch is my hero. He's the reason I went to law school. So I'm part of this movement because of Atticus Finch. Well, I realize it's a fictional character, okay, I really do. But I ask myself many days, what would Atticus do, right? And so, please, if you can maybe think of it in that context as well. But, back to the gay community, gays are well over represented on the sex offender registry, okay? They really are. And so, for the gay community to turn their back on us makes no sense. Now, for some people in the gay community, I understand. They're now seen as mainstream. So, if they hang out with us, they might get cooties, right? I mean, it used to be that the gays had the cooties, now we have the cooties, right? Remember, like the silly game you play when you're a kid. So it's really important for us to collaborate, and so we are reaching out to the gay community. We have a very important member of the UCLA professor that's part of our conference. for the first time this week. He also worked on gay marriage, okay? He was one of the instrumental people in gay marriage, and he became an expert on shame and stigma. And he testified about shame and stigma, and in part because of his testimony, gay marriage was passed. Okay, so there's a lot of commonality here. I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but think about it too. What was happening to gays? Gays were getting arrested for sexual acts. And oh, by the way, the sex offender registry started here in Los Angeles in 1947 because of homosexual men. That's the registry. That's who was on the registry at that point in time. Unfortunately, the registry has grown and grown, right, till in California now there's over 105,000 people. And then I'm going to repeat that number, 105,000 people. How many people should we expect at a hearing? I think 104,999 is a good number.
And the other one's at home sick.
There you go.
Good excuse.
And I have a fantasy, and this is it. I have a fantasy that we are in Sacramento and have a candlelight vigil. And I don't know how many people saw the movie Milk about Harvey Milk, but there's a fantastic candlelight vigil in that one. And we need to go there, and we need to talk about all the people we have lost. And to vigilante violence, okay? Then we can talk about people who've lost to suicide. Then we can talk about broken families. I mean, there are a lot of tears to shed about this, folks. We had somebody do some research for us just recently. We found out that 17 men were been killed since the year 2005. 17 men killed by vigilantes in California, only California, since that point in time. And you know, and so I hear this, if it only saves one child. Well, I believe in protecting children, but I also believe in protecting adult men, right? And we need to protect our people on the registry, and the fact that people on the registry, you can't possess a firearm, for God's sakes. You can't even defend yourself in some of these laws. And you know, we have to do this. We have to earn our rights. And yes, sometimes it's going to be inconvenient, and sometimes it might even be painful. My feet hurt many times after walking around that damn Capitol. But you know what? I just need better shoes. So, but the fact is, we need to do this, and it takes time. I said democracy takes a lot of time, and sometimes it's messy. And we go in two different kinds of meetings, okay? One of them is the face-to-face meetings. And I want you all to know, when we do face-to-face meetings, you will never go alone. We will have teams, a registrant, a family member registrant, and somebody like myself who supports, right? At least on a team, there'll be at least 3 people. You will never go alone. We don't want you to go alone. Please don't go alone. You don't know what beast you're going to be tangling with, okay? You need protection. I am there to protect you, okay? And you need protection. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but that's it. Because you don't necessarily know the language. There are not necessarily maps, right? Of where to go and when to go. So we're here to help guide you and to protect you, and in fact to improve your rights. Yes, sir.
Yeah, on June 25th, you know, there's supposed to be an IML, hearing, you know, do you need people for that hearing, or is it going to be split?
Well, sir, the June 25th hearing has been delayed to July 9th at the request of the government, and it's possible that the hearing won't be held at all. So we're not asking for people to come to that, and it's not lobbying, by the way, but it is a way to get public attention to our cause. And any time that there's a case, and this is a motion, the government's filed a motion to dismiss the case, the judge doesn't have to have a hearing. So the judge can just make a ruling that the judge will make the decision based on our paperwork. And I think that's what's going to happen in that case. It's really complicated. They probably don't want to hear it. And so because of the uncertainty, we're not asking for people to come. But thank you for that question. But again, we know, okay, with certainty, early next year, we need to go to Sacramento, okay? And so we're going to do our best to marshal resources. Last year, when the tiered registry was like on the brink like this, we had a wealthy family donate $10,000, okay, just for that purpose. And so what happened is $10,000 was spent to rent cars. We were going to rent a bus, but we didn't have enough people. We had some vans coming up from Los Angeles, from San Diego, from the desert, we had all these bands of people coming. We had hotel rooms. People could stay in a hotel room one night. We had money to feed people. This was awesome, right? And so I can't promise that every time. Sometimes you're going to ask you to do it on your own nickel, okay? I happen to have a couple of guest rooms. I have people that stay in my guest rooms in my house and stuff. And it's just, you know, we need to do this. We need our faces to be seen. We need our voices to be heard. And I understand stigma, shame, as Roger was saying, living in the rabbit hole. But just because you live in that rabbit hole doesn't mean you can't be hurt, okay? They put the hose down there and they try to drown you. They put the pesticide down there and they try to kill you, poison you. Whatever it is, whatever examples that we use, please, you need to speak out. And my mantra is show up, stand up, and speak up. And congratulations to you that you've shown up to this conference. That's the first step, okay? And I'm going to ask you to stand up and speak up. If you come to monthly meetings, you'll have an opportunity to practice. You get up there and you can talk about a challenge that you're facing, okay? If you come to Sacramento, then you'll get another challenge, opportunity to do it. So I mentioned the teams. There's also training. We will train you. You will not go to the Capitol without being trained. Training sessions, we usually do 2 hours or 3 hours of training, and then in the morning, and then we feed you lunch, and then we walk you to the Capitol. We have an office, a virtual office, a block and a half from the Capitol. We go there, or we meet in the nearby Starbucks, okay? And then we walk over. Those are the face-to-face meetings. We will pre-arrange the meetings for you. You don't have to do any of that, okay? But before those meetings, those meetings. Okay, that's one kind of meeting. Face-to-face meetings early next year. Please put it on your dance card. You're going to come to Sacramento. Find an excuse or a reason. Take a couple days off. Yes, sir.
Can you post some dates as soon as you can divine what dates those would be? Because
Yes.
the sooner some of us can buy tickets, the better.
That's very true. And by the way, Southwest is our friend. But in whatever way you can get up there. And carpooling is great, van pooling, stuff like that. And then the other kind is the committee hearings. And Roger made some references to these committee hearings. That's where we zap bugs, okay? So when we're going into the face-to-face meetings, a lot of times we're talking about general issues until they start getting their legislation introduced, and then we're talking about specific bills, okay, in the face-to-face meetings. And then when we go for a hearing, it's usually one bill, and we're all there to speak either in support of or in opposition to a bill. It's simple and it's empowering. So this is it. We'll do this, okay? And here you are. Janice is up there, blah, 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 for 3 minutes. I only get 3 minutes, okay? But still, I get 3 minutes. You're going to stand up at a microphone that's in the aisle, and you're going to say, my name is Janice. I'm from Sacramento, and I oppose this bill. That's all you're going to say. And it's going to be worth every second of it. Because then you're going to watch and see the committee members discuss the bill, and then they're going to vote. Okay, and when they vote against that bill that you oppose, you are going to feel like you're 7 feet tall, right? And worth $1 million. Let me tell you.
It's true.
I mean, it's just,
It's true.
it's true. Yes, sir.
Also, just to add to that, I mean, if you can get bills squashed with just 15 people, I mean, imagine what you can do with, they say, with a lot of people, even just with 15 people that are smashed, I mean, imagine a lot of people. Not more, I say thousands, so. If you say we're all in this together, like Frank said, I mean, it's the truth. Can't hide about it. It's, you know, they say groups attract groups, so.
Yes, we do. Yes, ma'am.
I just remember I went up for the tour. They were listening too. They were turned around and they were actually looking at all of these constituents, which was kind of touching. You know, they weren't ignoring us.
Absolutely. And you know, I mean, Roger identifies himself as a businessman because he is a businessman, right? And you can say I'm a teacher, or I'm a nurse, or I'm retired, whatever it is, if you want to. You won't get an opportunity to speak more than that. But some people do say, I'm a registered citizen, right? And sometimes the eyes get big, but I kind of calming down about that. And as Roger said, that one time, Senator Nancy Skinner, who was the chair, and she actually still is the chair of the Senate Public Safety Committee, and she took her time in that committee hearing and she said, I want to commend you, registered citizens, for testifying today. That took courage. and we're like, whoa.
That was
You know?
cool.
It was an amazing day, it really was. And Nancy Skinner, ever since then, has voted in our favor,
Yeah.
okay, on every single bill. She has come through, and she's the chair of the Senate Public Safety Committee. It's fantastic to have that, okay? We need to help Nancy Skinner help us.
We do.
And that's how we do it, by phone calls and letters and showing up at committee hearings.
Janice,
Yes.
I would just like to say, if we can load up the bus, I will offer to pay for the entire bus.
Yeah.
Get a hold of me and I'll offer to pay. Everybody here just brought two
Awesome.
people, that's 100
Thank
people,
you.
and I'll pay for it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I think we've gotten up to 50 people so far, you know, but oh my gosh.
Let's
if-
double it.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's just fantastic what a difference it makes. And I remember when we had 15 people, there was such a buzz in the room. They're going, what is this all about? You know, because they already asked opposed to the bill. It's like, why are all these people in line and why are they opposed to this bill? And as Roger said, the committee that afternoon, or that day, whatever it was, morning or afternoon, they actually passed the bill. And at that point in time, I didn't live in Sacramento. It took me 5.5 hours to drive to Sacramento and then drive home. And I remember it's like, I wasted all this time, blah, 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 you know, and I even wrote about it, Janice's journal column. But then the next morning, that assemblyman withdrew his bill. And we had a couple people call the office to find out why. And this is what he said. I didn't know anybody was going to be opposed. And it just took 15 people. We have 105,000 folks. Oh, by the way, we have 2,000 people in Sacramento on the registry. I'm trying to harness those people because they're right there. But let me tell you what, we can't find, well, we had one meeting in Sacramento, and this is a challenge for us to find a place to meet. We met at the Sacramento County Bar Association. I am a member of the Sacramento County Bar Association. We had a meeting with 82 people. Fantastic meeting. We made sure every little piece of lint and every gum wrapper was picked up. There was no reason for them to deny us a repeat visit, and yet they denied us a repeat visit. 82 people, and we haven't been able to go back to Sacramento. Actually, my church has said we can come. So in October, we'll have that in Sacramento. But it's okay, we need geographic diversity. On our face-to-face meetings, we need geographic diversity when we get up on that microphone. And we need you to give Roger your email address and or your phone number, okay? And do it online. It's so easy. There's a little box. What does it say about the box?
Yep, it just says enter your email address if you want to get alerts, and right below it, text this word to this phone number if you want to get on the text alerts. It's easy.
Okay? And he sends things out on a very regular basis.